Students, this is Dr. Vibha Tiwari, Assistant Professor of English, College Education, Rajasthan. Students, today I'm back with another video on Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard. And let me tell you people that this is the last one in the series of videos that I have uploaded on this channel. Before I take up the original text, let me remind you people that in the previous video, I had told you people that the poet preaches, rather he warns the people who are very much living that they should not make fun of the common people. Also, he had highlighted the philosophical fact, that we people always want to be remembered even when we had left that particular place. Like if a person dies, he wants to be remembered, and that's why people do the work of donation and all that, just to be remembered after death. So again, the tone of the poem shifts here. See, in the first five stanzas of the poem, very first five stanzas of the poem, the poet dealt with the pictorial beauty, the surrounding beauty of the natural beauty of the surroundings where he was at that time. After that, he assumed the role of a preacher, and now here these are highly imaginative lines. Here he is discussing with you people what will happen, how he will be remembered by those people who just know him when he'll die. So this is what I told you in the very beginning. These are the things which make this poem a unique one. So he says, "For thee who mindful of the unhonored dead, dost in these lines artless tale relate, if chance, by lonely contemplation led, some kindred spirit shall inquire thy fate." He says, "O you who had taken care of honoring these dead people by writing this poem in their honor." He says, he's just, you can say, he is addressing himself. He is in the shoes of a third person. And see, there are three people involved in this particular thing. The one who is dead, that is the poet himself. Then there is someone who will be coming to inquire about him at that particular place. That's the rule two. And the third one will be the one who will be telling about the dead poet to that second person. So there are three roles simultaneously assumed by the poet himself in the coming stanzas. So he says, "For thee who mindful of the unhonored dead, dost in these lines their artless tale relate." He says, "O you who took care, who took pain to honor these dead ones who were lying unhonored. There was no one who was giving them any importance. You were the one who just composed this beautiful poem in their honor. So you you just told people, you told public about the lives of these people, and by way of your elegy, you even tried to give them honor. If chance, by lonely contemplation led, some kindred spirit shall inquire thy fate." He says, just as you inquired about the fate of these common people who are lying low in their graves, similarly, after your death, someone who will be like you, if ever he will be in a position to contemplate lonely, to think lonely, he will surely inquire about your fate. Kindred, similar, some similar spirit, that means someone who will be just the type of person you are, that fellow will come to inquire about your fate after your death. Haply, some hoary headed swain may say. And see how beautiful imagination of the poet is working here. He is assuming everything, that somebody will come to inquire about me just as I inquired about the fate of these common people. Perhaps someone will come for me also. And when he'll ask the people over here about me, haply some hoary headed swain may say, at that time some aged farmer will tell, some plowman will tell about me. Oft have we seen him at the peep of dawn, brushing with hasty steps the dews away. Now he is just giving you an idea of his daily routine, what he actually does every day. So whatever he does, he knows it. And he says when he will be no more, people who by chance or just in the course of his you can say spending the day come in contact with him, perhaps they might be observing him, and when he'll be no more, they will be able to narrate his daily routine to someone who will come to inquire about their fate. So he says, Haply, some hoary headed swain may say, we seen oft have we seen him at the peep of dawn. He says the fellow will tell, that plowman will tell the inquirer, the one who will come to inquire about me, that often we had seen him early in the morning, brushing with hasty steps the dews away to meet the sun upon the upland lawn. He will surely tell that person that often we people had seen him moving in a haste towards the upland lawn at the time of dawn. That means it's his daily routine. At the time of early morning, he goes upland, he goes on the hilly side to have a glimpse of the rising sun, to see the sunrise. So perhaps that will be noticed by someone, and that plowman will tell the person who will come to inquire about me. It's the assumption of the poet. There at the foot of yonder nodding beech that weeds its old fantastic roots so high, his listless length at noontide would he stretch. Similarly, that fellow will also tell that at the time of noon, the poet used to lie under the shade of a beech, shady beech, and this tree is a very peculiar one because its roots are in a kind of in a kind of wreath. That means they are very much visible on the upper surface, and the roots are above the ground. So at the time of noon, the poet used to rest on those roots, on those roots which have reached the upward area. So he would stretch and pore upon the brook that babbles by, and while lying there, he used to look very patiently the brook that was you can say flowing nearby. So this was his daily routine. At the time of morning, he used to go to the upward land, that means the peak of the hill, and he used to see sunrise. After that, at the time of noon, he used to lie on the roots of a shady beech tree, and throughout the noon, he used to look at a nearby river. Hard by yon wood, now smiling as in scorn, muttering his wayward fancies he would rove. And that fellow will also tell that often he used to just wander here and there in the forest, and because he was not very social, so people just observed him, and this weakness is also known to the poet himself. So he says, hard by yon wood, now smiling as in scorn, that farmer will tell the person who has come to inquire that often we had also seen him smiling. He didn't tell any reason for that smile, as if he was scorning, as he hated something, and he used to smile, and he used to wander here and there in the forest, and he used to mutter also whatever came in his mind. He used to mutter that. So he used to spend his time roving here and there, moving here and there in the forest. Now drooping, woeful wan, like one forlorn. Sometimes he used to look very alone, very lonely kind of a person, and there was a kind of sadness on his face. That farmer will tell that sometimes he used to feel very low and very woeful, very sad, like someone who had lost his near and dear ones, like someone who had been left alone, or crazed with care, or crossed in hopeless love. And perhaps sometimes he used to look as if he has become crazy, and perhaps he was crossed in love, he was a hopeless lover. Such kind of things came into the mind of those people who used to look at him, and perhaps these are the things that will be narrated by him. See how minutely he also knows himself. It's very hard task, because very often we don't know much about our own, what we do. These are the involved, like at present I'm moving my hands. This is the involuntary gesture, because I'm not thinking while I'm moving my hands. They are moving on their own, on accord. Similarly, there are certain things which we do unknowingly, unconsciously, sorry, at the back of our mind something is playing, and we are moving in that, you can say, in harmony to that. We don't observe our own selves, but a second person can very well tell us that these are your habits. These are, some things are so much, you can say, a part of our own personality that we hardly observe them, and we are hardly aware of them, but the second person who observes you may very well relate that these are your habits. Similarly, you can say, the poet also is narrating his own habits in these stanzas, but the thing that is very peculiar here is how minutely he has observed his own self. One morn I missed him on the customed hill, along the heath and near his favorite tree. And suddenly that day will come. It's just the assumption of the poet that one day when he'll pass away, that farmer will tell the inquirer that one morning we all missed him on the customed hill, the hill where he used to go for to watch the sunrise. We missed him there. We didn't find him there. Along the heath, he was not even along the heath or near his favorite tree, that beech tree. We all missed him there. Another came, nor yet beside the rill. And second day, that day passed, and when the second one came, even then we could not see him beside the rill, his usual spot where he used to spend his afternoons. Nor up the lawn, nor at the wood was he. Neither he was at the up lawn, nor he was in the forest. The next with dirges due in sad array, slow through the churchway path we saw him borne. Now he is narrating his funeral procession. See how deeply he has thought about his own death and what will happen when he'll die, how people will react to that. Continuing in the same vein, he says that when he'll die, he'll be carried away to the by the funeral procession, by way of the funeral procession, to the churchyard. So when that person who has come to inquire about his fate will further talk to the farmer will tell him that finally they caught a glimpse of his body being carried away in the funeral procession, and people were singing dirges. The next with dirges due in sad array, people were moving in a line and array, and they were singing dirges. They were singing sad songs. Dirge is the sad song dedicated to the memory of a dead one. So they were singing dirges, and they were carrying away his body towards the churchyard. Approach and read, for thou canst read the lay. Finally, he has even assumed what will be written on his tombstone. So you can very well say how much obsessed he is with his own death, and he has even given us the lines that he feels must be engraved on his tombstone. So he says, the farmer will call the person who has come to inquire about his fate to come and have a closer look at his tombstone, and he'll say, approach and read, for thou canst read the lay. He'll say, that farmer will say that, okay, you are a learned person, so you just come near the grave and just try to read whatever is written on the tombstone, graved on the stone beneath yon aged thorn. And he even imagines himself to be buried in his grave, and on his tombstone there must be some poetic lines which he'll give us in the further strangers. What will be written there, what he intends to be engraved on his tombstone, he'll be giving that also. So he says this is just a you can say his imagination at full play, and he's imagining that the person who has come to inquire about him will get a chance to even read the inscription on his tombstone, because he'll be called for doing so by the farmer who was up till now giving the whole description regarding his lifestyle to that person who has come to inquire. So now we come towards the end of this poem, the epitaph part. Before I take up this part, what's an epitaph? Epitaph in Hindi we call it Smaran Lekh. That means the lines dedicated to the memory of a dead one, and those lines which are engraved. These lines are specially engraved on the tombstone. So here, this is something special here. See, the poet not only imagines about his death, but also he has made efforts, serious efforts, to write something which he intends to get engraved on his tombstone in the form of this epitaph. And what exactly he has given in this epitaph? He simply has given what type of a person he really feels himself to be, what he thinks about his own self, जो वो अपने बारे में खुद सोचता है, खुद के बारे में वो क्या सोचता है, वो चीज़ वो चाहता है कि मरने के बाद उसके टूमस्टोन पर लिखा जाए. Here rests his head upon the lap of earth, a youth to fortune and to fame unknown. He says, in my epitaph, these will be the lines that will be engraved. He says, uh, he, after being buried, these lines will exactly tell the onlookers what kind of a person was he. So he says, he rests his head upon the lap of earth, a youth to fortune and to fame unknown. He highlights the fact that throughout his life he didn't get money enough to become rich, and neither he was very famous. So he says, here lies such a person in his grave, a young one who was not rich, who was not very famous. Fair signs frowned not on his humble birth. Still, he was very knowledgeable, because even if he was born in poverty, he could get access to knowledge. So that's why, see, one more peculiar thing here: E, F, and S, of E of earth, fortunes F, fames F, and sciences S. These are capital, these are in capitals, because these things have been personified. Fair signs frowned not on his humble birth. That means, if we personify science, science did not get angry to the fact that he was born in poverty. That means he was able to have access to knowledge. And melancholy marked him for her own. And even he knows very well that throughout his life he lived a kind of uh, sorrowful life, a kind of life free from all sorts of excitements, a life, you can say, he maintained a very steady tenor of his life. So he says melancholy marked him for her own. That means throughout his life he had been melancholic. So he is just pointing out, indirectly he is just pointing out the qualities of his own character, and what type of a person was he. We very well get a clear glimpse of him in by way of these lines. सो ही से सिंपली सेज कि वो इस तरह का यूथ था जो कभी प्रसिद्ध नहीं हुआ, कभी अमीर नहीं हुआ, लेकिन उसके बावजूद उसे ज्ञान की कोई कमी नहीं थी, और सारी जिंदगी उसने बड़ी गंभीरता से और एक तरह से कह सकते हैं दुख में बिताई. So simply he wants to highlight that though he was not that rich or that famous, but even then he was a person of knowledge. He was a person who having access to knowledge, and he remained a very serious kind of person throughout his life. Large was his bounty and his soul sincere. And he says he was very magnanimous kind of person. He was very kind in his nature and his soul sincere. He was also very sincere in his job. He, whatever he did was with dedication. And this poem itself is an example. See how sincerely he has put in so serious efforts to glorify these common people. Heaven did a recompense as largely send. He gave to misery all he had, a tear he gained from heaven. He says, although heaven did not, God did not give him much, even then he was recompensed. There was a kind of compensation given to him by God. And this talent of creating poetry is the, you can say, compensation that he got from God. He gave to misery all he had, a tear he gained from heaven. 'Twas all he wished a friend. He says whatever he could have throughout his life, he dedicated that to his misery. That means, see here, misery has also been personified, heaven has also been personified. That means simply, all through his life he was miserable. That means he never got fame, he never, though he was talented, though he was very deserving, still he did not get that much fame, he did not get that much money. But he says somehow he did not feel sorry for that, because he was compensated from God, by God. And what was the compensation he gained from heaven? It was all he wished, a friend. And in the very beginning, I told you that somehow this poem is also dedicated to his friend Richard West. So he got a friend. Here, a friend stands for, somehow it points out towards Richard West. So he says, though he was very kind, he was very sincere, but still, he, all through his life, he faced misery, and his life was full of sorrows. He had to face trials and tribulations all through his life. Still he got compensation in the form of a friend, Richard West. यानी कमियों के, बहुत सी कमियों के बावजूद, बहुत सी चीज़ें उसके पास नहीं होने के बावजूद, सबसे अच्छी बात ये रही कि उसे गॉड ने कम से कम फ्रेंड दिया, अच्छा फ्रेंड दिया। और शायद उसी की याद में कहीं ना कहीं वो याद भी है जो इस पोएम को लिखने के लिए इंस्पिरेशन का काम कर रही है उसके लिए। No farther seek his merits to disclose, or draw his frailties from their dread abode. Now, there will be a note of warning also in his epitaph. He says, those people who are reading, those onlookers who are reading the inscription on his tombstone, they should not try to, now after his death, one should not try to discuss about his merits and demerits. See, once that fellow is gone, he has every right to lead a peaceful life in his next, you can say, birth, or you can say whatever time he is getting in the company of God. He has every right to be at peace, not to be disturbed by the judgment of these people who are very much alive. So he says, no farther seek his merits to disclose, or draw his frailties from their dread abode. No one has got the right to discuss about his merits or demerits or his weaknesses once he is buried under the earth. There they alike in trembling hope repose, the bosom of his Father and God. Finally, he says, no living being has got the right to discuss any further about his virtues or vices, because whatever merits or demerits he had, now he is in the bosom of his Father and God. Now he has reached his final destination, and now it is up to God to decide for him whether he did good or bad. Whatever his is the momentum of his virtues or vices, he'll be rewarded or punished according to that, and that right is with God alone. So no one, no earthly member, no mortal thing has got the right, especially no human being has got the right to discuss or disclose or to pass any judgment regarding his merits और डीमेरिट्स। यानी कि दुनियावी लोगों को हक ही नहीं है कि वो अब कोई उसके गुणों या अवगुणों के ऊपर चर्चा करें, क्योंकि गुण और अवगुण तो मौत के बाद पाप और पुण्य का खाता तो सिर्फ ईश्वर के पास है, गॉड के पास है, और वो इस चीज को जज करेंगे वेदर द पर्सन इज टू बी सेंट टू हेवन और टू हेल। Now, nobody else has got this right. So see, somehow he has also shown his belief in Christian mythologies, and also we can say that somehow we also feel that towards the end, the philosophical you can say undertone which was up till now comes out very clearly when he talks about the judgment day, the doomsday. So in this way we can say that this poem is very beautifully capturing the very concept of glorifying the common people. And as I told you in previous videos also, it is very unique in its description of the things, in its philosophical tone, undertone, or didactic tone. And finally, it's the one chief quality of this poem is also, see how well how minutely the poet has observed his own personality by way of writing this epitaph, by way of giving us the description through the mouth of that farmer who will be telling about the poet to the person who has come to inquire. यानी कि अलग 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 तरीके से पोइट ने पूरी पोएम में एक तरह से लोगों को चेतावनी भी दी है, एक सही तरीके से जीने का अंदाज भी बताया है, और साथ ही अपने गुणों और अवगुणों को भी लोगों के सामने रखने की। Students, with this we come to an end of this poem. I hope you would have enjoyed the videos, and we'll be discussing another poem in my new video. Till then, bye bye from my side.